Hey everyone, this is part two of my anniversary videos, I guess now. I kind of wish I could have done it all in one video, but I also want to answer everyone's questions. So, because I feel bad sometimes putting out so much material, so many long videos. Ideally, I think I should do 10 to 15-minute videos, but I almost never do. That's the last of that. For that, I apologize. But that's the way it is. Part of it is that, now there are so many people doing videos. When I started a year ago only, it was much easier for me to follow pretty much everyone and catch all of their videos. And just, anyway, it's grown amazingly, particularly the past 6 months, I think. Maybe I was kind of lucky when I came in to catch it sort of before it totally exploded. Or maybe it's better now that it's exploded. But anyway, with so many people out there, I feel even more like I should be doing shorter videos. And a lot of people, we do Hangouts, and those always go really long. So there's more material, longer videos by more people, all of whom want to be buddies with each other, or at least a lot of us do. It makes it tricky. Anyway, and now I'm killing more time. In this video, I will be giving away two more trades. Now I'm losing track of what I thought I was going to give away. I guess to one person I will give away Understanding Comics, and to another I will give away, not that one, Astro City Confession. Was that it? I feel like I had another idea of one I was going to give away, but I can't find it now. Okay, so I believe the last question I read came from Doomfly Daddy. So the next question is from Big Shot Comics. I'm just curious, says Big Shot, about your reading experience with worn publication books or Bronze Age Mad or Cracked. If you read them, any thoughts, seeing as I think you grew up smuggling comics from your folks, I think in the 70s, early 80s. Maybe also a little rehash on El Cid and the Hunter hardcovers, if you've read them yet. Yeah, I showed off those hardcovers and I haven't read them yet. I sort of looked through them a lot for the art and then kind of put them aside. I have this huge pile of things I should be reading. You make a good point. My parents were monitoring to some degree. Well, they didn't allow me to read a lot of comic books, but I somehow Mad Magazine wasn't counted amongst that. And they also didn't notice that Mad Magazine, I guess they didn't notice, had some sort of nudity in it, which definitely was very interesting to me when I was quite young, and kind of gave me the wrong idea. For a short while, I thought that women's breasts did not have nipples on them, because in Mad Magazine they did not. And the eerie, creepy kind of comics sometimes had nudity in them and had a kind of a sexual vibe going on, and my parents did not catch on to that either, as far as I know. It was only when they discovered my heavy metal magazines and they threw those out, viewing them as porn, and those are the only ones they really noticed. So that's an interesting question. I can't really remember anymore, but I did a bunch of various tricks to buy more things, buy more comic books than my parents might have realized I was getting. But I think I wore them down, and after a while they just accepted that I was going to read comic books a lot. DeCosta DC Comics asks, where do you see your collection 1 year from now? What's your focus? Is there a title in particular that you'd like to tackle? I think that I would like to, well, two focuses. One is, I think I've mentioned it before, or maybe I don't know. I would like to get more and more high quality hardback collections because I really enjoy comic books in that form. And I would also, well, I'm thinking about whether I want to try and collect the Herb Trimp run on the Hulk, which is a bit odd, I suppose, but somehow I have a strong nostalgic feeling for that now, and there's something really appealing on those. Or I could get the, what do they call them, the Marvel Masterwork editions of those Herb Trimp Hulks. I'm trying to decide which to do on that. What else? You know, there's definitely little focuses here or there, and I seem to be attracted to obscurities. Like this past year, I've collected DC comics that were reboots of the Jack Kirby comics, but not by Jack Kirby. And I collected all the old Dreadstar comics, and I collected all of the old DC series about Arak, not Arak, Son of Stone. I don't know if he had a subtitle. Arak was an Indian in Viking times, and it was a sword and sorcery comic written by Roy Thomas in the 80s, I guess, at DC. So I'm collecting oddities like that, and so I don't have the next oddity or, you know, next sort of obscure thing that I always wished I had on the horizon. But I'm sure I'll think of something. Let's see. Red Vitamin Blue. He says, so here's a question I posed to Finely Designed that I'd like your opinion on. Someday in the future, the last comic book will be made. It's inevitable when you think about it. Even if the medium survives the next 1,000 years, entropy entails a very certain ending. So the question, what should the very last comic book be about? Red Vitamin Blue, you're an interesting thinker. I mean, my first thought is kind of cheesy, which is the last comic book should be about the history of comics. But there already are comic books about the history of comics. There's the comic book history of comics, for one. And there's these Scott McCloud Understanding Comics, which is kind of a little bit of a history of comics. Otherwise, I think the last comic book ever published should be about Superman. That would be cool. I'm going to give away Understanding Comics, The Invisible Art. I like this so much. I think it's so good, but maybe lots of people have it. So if you end up being the winner and you already have it, let me know, and I'll do a drawing. I'll think of something else. And if you don't have it and you don't win it here, you should get it, or at least get it out of your library. It'll just make you think about how you read comic books a lot more. So let me, oh, my iPad. Got to do the random.org thing. Again, it's actually showing. Random.org. Got 38 people. As I said in the previous video, these are the people who left comments on my announcement of this anniversary video. Most of whom asked questions, but some didn't, but I included anyone who left a comment. And no one knew they were being entered into a drawing, so if you just don't like being in drawings and winning things, then let me know. And I'll do another drawing. Okay, excuse me. It drew the same number as it had previously, so I'm going to just do it once more. Number 22 is Spiro.geek. Oh my, that's going to cost me on the postage, isn't it? Spiro, if you don't already have Understanding Comics, I'd love to send it to you. If you do, we'll figure out something else I can send to you. So that's cool. Spiro's a great guy. I love watching his videos. Hope he stays in the community a long time. Stroke Pilot. My question, which are your favorite top 3 ongoings? Could be open ongoings or miniseries that are ongoing right now for each major publisher. So Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, etc. Okay. Marvel. I guess all new X-Men, Daredevil, and Thor. That's kind of easy. Something got hot in here. Let's see. DC's a little harder because I keep switching around which are my favorite DCs. So off the top of my head right now, I'm going to say Justice League Dark, Batman, and Detective Comics. But it could have been, even Dial H for Hero now I'm excited about. Could have been all kinds of things at DC because I buy a lot of DC comics. Image Comics, I guess I'm getting things in trade. It's weird how it suddenly got hot. Getting things in trade, and a lot of that in trade. So I think that probably doesn't count for you. Like I'm getting Manhattan Projects and Profit in trade, and those might be 2 of my tops. The ones I'm not getting in trade, I guess Clone and Fatale and Great Pacific would be my top 3. Dark Horse, right now for some reason I'm mostly getting Dark Horse, well, because I can get them cheap. I mostly get Dark Horse in bundles digitally. So I guess there I would have to say that Matt Kindt comic book, what's it called? A conspiracy theory comic. My brain it's getting later now, and my brain is getting stuck. The Matt Kindt comic, and I can't think of what else from Dark Horse. There are other things. The Conan comic book from Dark Horse, and I'd love to be getting the Francavilla comic book, but I haven't been able to locate all the issues, so I'm waiting on the trade for that. The Black Beetle? Yeah. Sorry, Stroke Pilot, my brain just kind of locked up there. Silver Age Nostalgia asks, any advice for someone who's just starting collecting? What's your favorite book in your collection? What is your Holy Grail? If you're first starting collecting, my advice would be to pick something that intrigues you that's not very expensive and get the whole run of that, because that's just a lot of fun. A little bit of a hunt, but something you can find, and that you're not going to blow a whole lot of money on. And then as you get deeper into it, I think you might start thinking about books that are like Holy Grails, ones that that cost a bit of money and that you want a really high quality copy of. My Holy Grails would be EC Comics, if I could get really nice copies of those and if I had the money to spend on them. R. Dowdy, the great legend, Rob, actually asked about this on Twitter the other day, and I said Weird Science #1. I since found out there is no Weird Science #1. I think it starts at issue 12. So I'd love someday to get a hold of really nice copies of the EC science fiction and fantasy comics. I love all the ECs, but those are my favorites of all. So the weird science, weird fantasy, and then I think there was weird science fantasy. That would be really cool. It's fun to have kind of Holy Grails. I think I tend to more focus on quantity, but I'd like to shift sometime in the future into quality for a few things. Anyhow, Howler Mouse asks, how has having your own channel changed and enriched your collecting habits? Well, it's definitely enriched my reading and collecting habits. It's more noticeable in reading because I constantly see things that other people are talking about and either appreciate them more if I have them or become interested in them and start seeking them out. There's almost too much feedback of that, too many things that you want to get once you see other people having them. And I know that plenty of times, Tim, you've showed stuff that's reminded me, oh, I want to get the rest of that, like Astro City or God knows, so much stuff that you show, but with other people too. So that's been very enriching. What books, there's more questions from Howler Mouse. What books have you picked up which you never would have tried if not for the community? Oh, I just sort of talked about that. I think a lot of the, a big example right away is Sixth Gun, which was, if it weren't for Travis, I wouldn't be reading this. Travis has had a lot of influence on my reading. So has, in the past, Minutia Minute, lots of other people. Harry Monster 666 just influenced me to go back and start reading Dial H again. And I'm very glad I did. He was very right. Minutia Minute, I remember, got me into Danger Club, which is now like another really cool image book that I really like. So it goes on and on. And a lot of people on older comics have reminded me of stuff I wanted to read. I think someone in the community reminded me that I wanted to get Dreadstar again, and has reminded me of artists that I love that I want to track down more of, like, say, Gene Colan. And Howler Mouse also asks, do you think you have a breakthrough vid that really boosted your channel? The first real breakthrough video I had, I guess, was Why Are Comic Books So Addictive, was the title of it, I believe. And that boosted me up and got me a lot more viewers. And I was really pleased with that video. But actually before that, I did another sort of themed video, which was called Artists versus Writers, AVW. And that was the first video I ever did that got some responses from other people. They did their own artist versus writer videos about, which they felt was more important or what the balance of importance between the two was. So that was exciting for me when there was sort of direct response in other videos to my videos. Now I kind of wish, I can't think of more sort of theme videos now of topics I'd like to address, because I really like doing those. Maybe I blew my wad on the artists versus writers and why are comics so addictive. Running with Comics asks, what storyline coming up are you most looking forward to? I was really looking forward to Fialkov, the writer from iVampire, doing some Green Lantern and Red Lantern comics, but then that kind of fell on its face. I guess I look forward to things by creators, new creators that are coming on something, rather than storylines. Although I'm sure a new storyline always comes with a new creator, or almost always. I'm looking forward to see what Greg Pak does with the Batman Superman book he'll be doing soon. But I have no idea yet what that storyline will be. But I've always found Greg Pak to be a very interesting writer. I guess I am looking forward to the Batman Year 1 or Year 0 storyline. So that'll be cool too. And my mind goes blank on anything more at the moment. I've only got 8 more questions. Can I fit them in on this video? Maybe. Or no, more than 8 more. 8 more people asking questions, so I'm asking more than one. 20 Ingram Street over in Australia asks, also, oh no, that's his second question. I've ordered these wrong. Oh, no, maybe that was his only question, at least that I have managed to maintain. He asks, pitch me your ideal crossover team up. Any characters, any setting. Okay, my ideal team up would have to include Doctor Doom. Maybe, Doctor Doom and Doctor Doom and Thor against Thanos or something like that would be really cool. Other really cool team ups would be I'm drawing blanks. I want it to be with Doctor Doom. So I keep thinking of different people with Doctor Doom. Batman and Doctor Doom teaming up to save the universe in some way. I just love the mix of Doctor Doom with other people, and I'd love to see him in situations where he has to work with one of the good guys. I don't know why that is, why I like that so much. La Raza asks, what comic book can't you live without? Or what is the comic book you cannot live without? Whoa. If I had to take one comic to a desert island with me, I think it would be the issue of New Gods. Is it New Gods number 6? I'm not sure. With the Deep Six in it. I don't even own a very good quality copy of that, but I should make finding all of those New Gods in good condition a higher priority, actually. I can't really answer what one comic book I can't live without, but that would be a good choice. I can't live without comic books. That's the real answer. Mr. Gretzky 9966 asks, my question, what was the one book or books you bought that you regret buying years later? A book that I bought that I regret buying. That's a tough one. Let's see. I regret buying years later. I mean, there's books that I regretted buying pretty quickly after buying them. And those include things like Omaha the Cat Dancer, if anyone remembers that. It just felt embarrassing to me. I can't think of other things. I didn't really fall for any of the collector's tricks in the 90s. So I would have regretted buying any of those. I think there's some trades of Cerebus, Cerebus the Aardvark, that I regretted buying. I really, back when I first discovered him in the late 70s or the early 80s, whenever Cerebus started, getting some notice, I really enjoyed it. And then later I would buy later Cerebus issues or trades, and somehow found them quite unlikable and regretted having bought them and feeling like I ought to read them because I just didn't want to read them anymore. Yeah, so Cerebus, I think it counts there. Somewhere in my shelves back here, I have a Cerebus trade that I've attempted a couple times to read just because I bought it, so I ought to read it. Hitman Von Doom asks, what is your favorite story that you have ever read in the comic medium? Favorite story that I've ever read. Is it Watchmen? Or maybe the arc, the early Frank Miller arc on Daredevil about Elektra. That might be my favorite that I've ever read. Yeah. I don't really know what my most favorite is. There could be all kinds of things. Some Jack Kirby New Gods, or Will Eisner's Spirit stories, some of those. Awesome Love Superdyke. I love your handle. My question, if you could have any prose writer make the switch to writing comics, who would it be and why? Okay, I have an answer to that, actually. But he's kind of an obscure writer. His name is Gene Wolfe. I mean, he's not that obscure to people who really follow science fiction closely. He's considered kind of a writer's writer in science fiction, like one of the great writers who most people don't know about, maybe one of the great writers in American literature of the past 25, 30 years, 40 years, that few people know about. He's fairly elderly now, but I would love to see what he would do in the comic book medium if he could really sink his teeth into it, because his mind is very kind of tricky and playful, and his stories always have many layers. You can enjoy them on the first read, but you discover all kinds of new things in the second read. His most famous book is called Shadow of the Torturer. And that would make a great comic book. It's the first in a 4-book series, that whole book series, which I think is called the Book of the New Sun, I believe, is the series. The Shadow of the Torturer, the Claw of the Conciliator, the Citadel of the Autarch, and one other. They're kind of deep, far future where you can't tell science from magic anymore, kind of half science fiction, half Baroque fantasy. Really excellent stuff. It would just be so cool to go to an alternate universe where Gene Wolfe had a long career as a comic book writer. I know I have some Gene Wolfe books over on this bookshelf over here, but I don't want to stop the video and go look for them. I'm getting close to the end, so I'm just going to plow on. Edward 2962, one of my favorite YouTube comic book reviewers when he has time. He asks, what can Marvel or DC do to reach parents to get them to buy comics for their kids? Okay, he has 2 questions. I'll answer the first one. After thinking about this lately, I think they should do accessible reprints, color reprints of older comics that would be particularly good for kids. You know, certain issues of Spider-Man, certain issues of the Fantastic Four for Marvel, some Wonder Woman from the early 60s, some Superman from different periods. Reprint them as comic books, not as big, expensive hardbacks that parents can find at stores and at comic book stores and buy for their kids. So on nice paper with better colors, you know, rather when you give your kid, because these old comics for the most part were just right for kids, but when you give them to them on an old newsprint, if you dare give them to them and you don't mind them destroying it, it's just not nearly as appealing as all the other comic books around in the package. So I would say just repackage some of that classic stuff for kids, nice bright colors on some nice paper, and have that available. Because what I end up doing with my child is mostly reading those black and white essentials or showcases, and they're a hard way to read comics with a kid, both because they're black and white and because there's 30 or 40 issues in that one collection, and it's a hard way to read comics for a kid. Edward's other question is, do people at your job know about your hobby? No one, as far as I know, they could discover it any time, knows that I do YouTube videos about comics. 1 or 2 people at work do know I like to read comics. Probably only one of them realizes how much I read comics, and even he may not fully know the extent of it. But he knows I'm a big comic nerd, and I'm a big science fiction nerd, and he's kind of a science fiction nerd. So we get to talk about that, and it's not embarrassing for me. But most of the people at my work don't know. Maybe they guess, or maybe they've been told by the few who do. Agent 42Q has 4 questions. He asks, where is Quacking Duck? Right now, she's downstairs asleep in her bedroom. Most days, she's at our coffee table drawing comic books or picture books. She also spends a lot of time at preschool. Who are some of your favorite artists? Jack Kirby, Jim Steranko, Will Eisner, so many. I love artists, and that's part of why I love comic books. Artists now include Chris Samney and Greg Capullo, and of course the woman on Saga. Man, if I can't remember her name, that's really bad. When do you read your books anymore? I read comic books on my lunch breaks sometimes. Other lunch breaks, I go to the gym and work out, or I go on errands. I sometimes read my books in bed before going to sleep. Sometimes that's a little physically uncomfortable, and it's more comfortable. Like if my wife's asleep, I kind of put my reading lamp down low, and I have to hold the comic book at a certain angle to see it. That's where the iPad comes in real handy. And do you find it harder to read teenage superhero books now? I think I do. A very good book out right now is Nova, and it would be a great book to start reading, when you're 11 or 12. And I think the character, is 14 or 15. It's very well done by Jeff Loeb and Ed McGuinness. Beautiful art. And I appreciate it as I read it, and I think this is a good comic book. But I do have trouble reading it. On the other hand, Danger Club is a comic book about teenage superheroes, but it's totally aimed at experienced comic book readers, and so I really enjoy that. So I prefer, I think, to read. I like to imagine most of the superheroes being in their 30s, actually, although I think the comic book companies mostly want them to be in their 20s. But I usually am pretty happy just thinking of Batman as being about 32 to 35. Yeah. So, one more to go, and then I'm going to draw for the last book, which will be Kurt Busiek's Astro City Confession, which I think is one of the cooler ones in the Astro City series. I'm probably going to pronounce it. Ninja Jedi Smurf. Great title, great name. How did you discover the YouTube community? I think I very gradually realized I was watching a community. At first I saw people like Chris at Dark Avenger C86 and had no idea that he was part of a community. I couldn't figure out when he was sort of addressing people directly, because I got he was kind of doing a review show, and I'd seen review shows, but he was also talking as if there were a specific group of people watching, and I just figured he had friends who he knew watched his YouTube videos, who lived in his neighborhood. But at some point I slowly started realizing there was a community there, and then I found, this shows YouTube used to work better. I found someone's personal history about comics video, and then down the side next to it were all these other personal history YouTube videos, and eventually I realized they were all tagging each other, and I found them deeply compelling watched one after the other. I remember Howler Mouse did one, and Dakin Howlett did one, and Kramda One did one, and a bunch of other people. Is Kramda One still out there? I haven't seen videos by him in a long time. And some of them may have specifically mentioned a community, and so that's sort of somewhere in watching all those people talk about their history, their personal history with comics, how they got started, is when I realized there was a community. Who did you first subscribe to? I'm not positive, but I think it was Poet Skinny. And I might have subscribed to him before I realized there was a community, but I saw that he was doing something personal, something special. And before then, I don't think I was much of a subscriber. And also, again, maybe YouTube worked better then. I used to just type in comic book reviews and get a lot of videos that way. And I don't think it occurred to me to subscribe to their videos. Now I subscribe to well over 350 people's videos just for comic book stuff. Okay, that was my last question. This is too much thinking. I can see my ears turning red, which is what happens when I'm particularly sleepy. So I'm going to give away one more trade. Thanks to everyone who watches my videos, comments on my videos. I want to give, and who makes videos that I love to watch. I would love to give you all presents. Maybe eventually I will have given everyone a present, 30 years from now. This random.org keeps wanting to pick Spiro.geek, but he's been picked once already. Number 13. Okay. Number 13, Davidus Raccoonus, who has given me a present. He did a Twitter contest, I guess. and I won a book from him called Cursed Pirate Girl, which I should do a video about. I've been wanting to do a video about that with my daughter because she loves it. She makes my wife read it to her all the time. So Davidus, David, if you don't have Astro City Confession, contact me and tell me how to send it to you. If you do have it, contact me and I'll pick something else. If you don't want gifts, contact me and I will give it to someone else. Anyway, hope you're all doing well. I really love this first year. And it's made me understand myself more, if that makes any sense. Both from doing my own videos and watching other people's videos and seeing how comic books have meaning to them. It makes me look into myself more for the meaning that it has for me. And, something that is important to you can become sort of symbolic for a lot of other things about your life and your approach to life. And that's done it this way for me with comic books and the way I appreciate things, the kinds of things I appreciate. I've focused on myself while focusing on all of you and while focusing on comics. So it's a win-win-win situation. Really loved it. Talk to you all later. Bye-bye.